Arthur began his new life as a dishwasher. The next day, Carlos had found Arthur a gig in a pretty ritzy part of town, a real high-class joint. From 4 in the afternoon till 1 in the morning, Arthur stood up to his elbows in suds, the steam rising from the water, and his shirt drenched in sweat and lavender scrubbing bubbles. All the while, the furious pace of satisfying the bourgeoisie's rapacious appetite kept the kitchen a hectic hellscape of activity. "Leg of lamb for table 3, someone would call out. "Filet mignon on 9, another would yell. "Where's my lasagna? For God's sake, where's my lasagna?" Arthur continued his scouring in disgust. It was almost too much for him to bear. The spectacle of human beings driven at a pace that would break a team of horses. The restaurant's sinister inner workings captured the cold, naked truth of class struggle as few other hellscapes could, Arthur thought to himself. It was all a cruel, unspeakable conspiracy. At 5 each afternoon, the bourgeoisie would begin poking through the window, making certain all was being readied for their 5:30 feeding. By 5:29, they were lined 3 or 4 deep at the door. Waiters and waitresses took their stations. The chefs stood, ladle at the ready. Busboys adjusted their bow ties. Arthur peered out from behind his suds. The doors opened, and in rushed the famished bourgeoisie. Each of the restaurant's hives had their role. The chefs, chained by the bourgeoisie's gluttonous appetite to their boiling cauldrons and steaming ovens, kept pace with sturdy determination. Forced to make do with less space than the master bathrooms for most of their money-drenched customers, they hovered over their sautéed masterpieces with the care of skilled surgeons. These were seasoned professionals. They'd been trained to withstand the most barbaric of conditions. When the kitchen ran low on parsley, they alternated garnishing as if it was child's play. When the pace of the bourgeoisie's bottomless demands grew too great, they took things to another level. The waitstaff, meanwhile, occupied 2 contesting worlds of struggle and merriment created by and for the service industry. While circulating among the engorged, filthy, rich customers in humble service, the waitstaff pleasured others with plastic smiles and hollow laughs. Their good cheer and prostituted emotions were base occupational requisites. On then returning to the netherworld, or kitchen, their smiles became open revulsion. Their laughs became quiet shrieks. Arthur watched this unholy transformation night after night. He knew a person's breaking point was merely a matter of time. At the lowest rung were the busboys. The busboys' task, arguably an impossible ask, was to clear as rapidly as possible the table scraps and discarded instruments of engorgement left by one set of the bourgeoisie to prepare the arrival of the next set. Their white aprons and gray plastic bins darted about the dining room, always a half step behind the departing bourgeoisie and a step ahead of those newly commanding a table. Their return to the kitchen was simply a blur, stopping only to off their load beside the sink for Arthur to sort. The rhythm of the kitchen was dictated by the whims of bourgeois tastes. If the rolls weren't warm enough, the drinks not stirred but mixed, the appetizer not suited to mercurial discernment of the propertied public, Arthur knew the entire operation could crumble. He stood, scrubbing dishes night after night, observing this full, tragic comedy unfold. Orchestrating the entire operation were the henchmen of the bourgeoisie, mid-level managers. They were too good to be associated with the likes of we mere workers, Arthur noticed, and yet too uncultured to occupy the celestial social circles of their bourgeois masters. These were masterful ideological contortionists whose lives were torn by their selfless service to a class of persons wholly unaccepting of their less than country club style upbringings, spit on by the bourgeoisie, even as they blanched reflexively at the sight of an unpolished spoon. This mutant class form could do nothing but take their frustrations out on the hapless workers a rung beneath them. Arthur so often winced when hearing that vainglorious laughter of the bourgeoisie at the sight of acrimony between mid-level manager and worker. More a chortle than a chuckle, it was as if to say, "Ha! The mindless plebeian masses. They are so easily divided. Our reign over them shall not ever end so long as we retain our omnipotent power to declare a roll not warm, a utensil unclean, or a meal not to our taste." Arthur's fists clenched, and he let out a low, intemperate moan whenever he heard that distinct cackle coming from the dining room. As the dishwasher, Arthur was always among the last to leave at evening's end. One night, while gathering his things from the locker, Arthur overheard two managers speaking in hushed, serious tones in the main dining room. He discreetly moved behind a door to listen further and became quite excited by their words. Arthur's loose interpretation of their conversation was that, for the first time it seemed, these managers were questioning the underlying class structure protected by an oppressive, alienating societal facade. They were wondering if their own material interests did not indeed lay with the oppressed working masses upon whose neck they kept their heel as their bourgeois taskmasters ordered. Arthur wanted to step out from behind the partition, confirm their suspicions, and give them both a big friendship hug. But for now, he could only listen in silence. "More coffee, Guillermo?" "Sure, why not?" replied Guillermo, a desperate resignation flattening his voice. "Quite a night, huh? Quite a night." "Yep, quite a night." Arthur pictured the two of them seething with rage, two burning infernos ready to lash out at the system. "My feet are killing me." "Yeah, mine too." Arthur could feel their pain and understood only too well just how quickly it could be translated into a powerful blow for revolutionary justice. "Well, gotta go." Yeah, better be gone." Their boiling frustration and gnawing desperation were but inches from the two men's red-hot surfaces. Arthur knew it was time to act. He leaped out, gesturing wildly to the startled keepers of the bourgeois social order. "Oh, hey, Pedro, I didn't know you were still around." Arthur gestured that he had overheard their dispirited revolutionary longings, and he was prepared to lead them in battle against their bourgeois masters. Not fully grasping, Guillermo replied, "Well, that's fine. Just make sure all the dishes are at least soaking." Arthur rhetorically gestured back. "What are a few dishes in the face of decades of oppression?" Guillermo reminded Arthur to hit the light on his way out, and the two disappeared into the night. Arthur sensed this little playground of the super-rich he had stumbled upon was very nearly ready for the revolutionary call. Sensing the people's frustration, the masses' complete sense of desperate deprivation, Arthur set out to lead the people in revolutionary struggle to defeat the bourgeois enemy and create a true workers' island paradise, free of class struggle, free of all forms of alienation, and free of all unfree things more generally.